Welcome back, everybody. This is video 3 of the No Nonsense Technician Study Guide. We are talking about antenna polarization today. So, T3B02, what property of a radio wave defines its polarization? The orientation of the electric field. T3A04, what happens when antenna at opposite ends of a VHF or UHF line of sight radio link are not using the same polarization? Received strength is reduced. So T3803 is what antenna polarization is normally used for long distance CW continuous wave, which is Morse code, and SSB contacts, single sideband, on VHF and UHF bands. Horizontal, what polarization? How do you have your antenna pointed up or along the horizon? Interstring propagation phenomenon. All right, T3C04 is which of the following types of propagation is most commonly associated with occasional strong signals on the 10, 6, and 2 meter bands from beyond the radio horizon? Sporadic E. Sometimes, propagation acts really weird, and you can, on 6 meter, when it opens up, you can talk into Europe on 6 meters. It really is amazing sometimes. That's why they call 6 meters the magic band. 6 meters is also known as the magic band. T3C03, what is a characteristic of a VHF signal, of VHF signals received via auroral backscatter? They are distorted and signal strength varies considerably. Auroral backscatter is when you're bouncing signals off of aurora borealis, the northern lights, which happened, a few weeks, maybe about a month ago, when we had the big, huge solar storm. Well, the storm's still going on, but we had a really humongous one about a month or so ago. What band is best suited for communicating via meteor scatter? 6 meter band. You can bounce signals not only off of buildings, but not only off of aurora borealis, like it was mentioned in C03, but off of meteors as well. It's the 6 meter band. Like I said, 6 meter band is known as the magical band. It really is amazing. What type of T3C06 is what type of propagation is responsible for allowing over the horizon VHF and UHF communication to ranges of approximately 300 miles on a regular basis? Tropospheric ducting. When the bands open up, with your regular handheld handy talkie, you can sometimes get lucky and talk to people hundreds and hundreds of miles. Here in Georgia, in middle Georgia, I got lucky one day and was able to communicate to people in Florida, around Tallahassee, which is a couple hundred miles away. It doesn't happen every day, but sometimes you get lucky. So next question is T3C08. What causes tropospheric ducting? Temperature inversion in the atmosphere. T3A07. What weather condition might decrease range at microwave frequencies? Precipitation will decrease microwave frequencies. T3A12 is what is the effect of fog and rain on signals in the 10 meter and the 6 meter band? There is very little effect. So, very good band for disaster relief. Okay. 40 meter as well. That'll get affected a little bit. But yeah. 10 and 6, very little effect with rain and fog. HF propagation. Excuse me. So T3A11, which region of the atmosphere can refract or bend HF and UHF radio waves? The ionosphere. Ionosphere will bend and bounce it back down. T3C02, what is a characteristic of HF communication compared with communications on VHF and higher frequencies? Long distance ionospheric propagation is far more common on HF. You can talk a very, very long distance on HF compared to VHF and UHF. T3C10, which of the following bands may provide long distance communication via the ionosphere's F region during the peak of the sunspot cycle? 6 and 10 meter band. When they open up, they open up. You know, like as of right now, this is June 3rd in 2024, and 10 meters, the technician area of the 10 meters especially is wide open. 28.3 to 28.5 megahertz is just booming right now. DX like crazy. DX is when you're making contacts outside of your country. T3C09, what is generally the best time for long distance 10 meter band propagation via the F region? From dawn to shortly after sunset periods of high sunspot cycles. Like I just said, you know, there's very high sunspot activity up on the sun right now. And 10 meters is wide open. Wide open. T3A08. What is a likely cause of irregular fading of signals propagated by the ionosphere? Random combining of signals arriving via different paths. So they can come from any different directions, and you'd never know. You might not be hearing one station 1 second, and all of a sudden you start getting interference. All of a sudden you start getting QRM. QRM is a Q code for interference from another station, from another person that's operating on the same frequency. So you always want to check the frequency. You want to listen, and then when you think you're done listening, then listen some more. All right? Before you call CQ. And then, of course, you want to see if the frequency is being used. Hopefully it's not. So T3A09, which of the following results from the fact that signals propagated by the ionosphere are elliptically polarized? Either vertically or horizontally polarized antennas may be used for transmission or reception. So either or, will work. Antennas and feed lines. T9A03. Which of the following describes a simple dipole-oriented parallel to the Earth's surface? Parallel to the Earth's surface. That would be a horizontally polarized antenna, parallel to the Earth's surface. T9A10. T9A10 is in which direction does a half-wave dipole antenna radiate the strongest signal? Strongest signal is from a dipole, half-wave dipole antenna, is going to radiate on the broad side of the antenna, What is the approximate length in inches of a half-wave 6-meter dipole antenna? Half-wave 6-meter. So you take your 6-meter, and that's the approximate wavelength of the frequency is 6 meters. And you divide that in half and you get 3 meters. So a half-wave 6-meter dipole, and you turn your 3 meters into inches, and you get about 112 inches. All right. That's all. That's how small a 6-meter dipole is. And there are calculators online that you can, look up. It's really not that difficult to figure out the length of a half-wave dipole on any frequency. 468 actually. 468 divided by the frequency. Which of the following increases the resonant frequency of a dipole antenna? Shortening it increases the frequency. So you're shortening the antenna if you want to go up higher in the bands. T9A08. What is the approximate length in inches of a quarter wave vertical antenna at 146 megahertz? 146 megahertz. A quarter wave is going to be approximately 19 inches. Which of the following describes a type of antenna loading? Electrically lengthening by inserting inductors in the radiating element. You can shorten an antenna by coiling it around, putting in some inductors, and things like that. T9A01. What is a beam antenna? Beam antenna is it concentrates signals in one direction. An antenna that concentrates signals in one direction. Yagi is one of the better designs of a beam antenna. One of the more popular as well. What is antenna gain? Antenna gain. The increase in signal strength is in a specific direction compared to a reference antenna. Reference antenna is always going to be your dipole. That's always going to be a reference antenna. All right, so compared to that, how much more, is going to be the strength? So that is the gain. T9A06. Which of the following types of antenna offers the greatest gain? Remember, I just said Yagi. So that is a beautiful, beautiful piece of antenna. That's amazing antenna. What is T9A04? What is a disadvantage of the short, flexible antenna supplied with most handheld transceivers compared to a full-size quarter wave antenna? It is going to be very, very low efficiency. You know, those little rubber duckies is what we call them. Little rubber duckies are not going to be anything compared to a full-size quarter wave or a 5/8 wave antennas. T9A07, what is a disadvantage of using a handheld VHF transceiver with a flexible antenna inside a vehicle? You're surrounded by metal, okay? Radio frequencies, radio waves, don't really like metal too much, okay? So signal strength is, of course, going to be reduced due to the shielding effect of the vehicle because of all the metal and everything that's around you. So it's always better to get a little mag mount on top of your car, and most of them, of course, will come with little coax that you can just route through in between your doors. Try not to do your best. Try do your best not to pinch it. But the one that I've had for like 4 years, almost 5 years now, and I'm just very careful when I'm opening the door. I got some blue tape on it to keep it exactly where I want it. So, and it has lasted. So remember, I was talking about a 5/8 whip. In my experience, 5/8 wavelength antennas have performed a lot better than a quarter wave antennas. So what is an advantage of a 5/8 wavelength whip antenna for VHF and UHF mobile service? It has more gain than a quarter wave antenna. It's a little bit longer, you know, but it'll get you out there. It will definitely get you out there. So we got feed lines and connectors up next. T9B03. What is coaxial cable the most common? Why is coaxial cable the most common feed line for amateur radio antenna system? It is easy to use and require few special installation consideration. Yeah, it's very common. So and it's very easy to deal with. What is impedance? Impedance is the opposition to the AC current flow. AC current flow. How do you measure impedance? What is the unit of impedance? The ohm. The ohm. What is the most common impedance coaxial cable used in amateur radio? 50 ohms. We were talking about coaxial cables. Most of your cable television coax should not be used for ham radio use, because they are most of them are around 75 ohms, if I'm not mistaken. And your ham radio, your amateur radio, requires a 50 ohm cable. All right, RG58, RG213, LMR 400 are some of the LMR 400 is pretty much the best thing that you can get, and it definitely is worth a little bit of extra money. Most definitely is. There is a seen recently. They came out on Amazon. KMR 400, which is just a little bit more loss than the LMR 400, but a lot less in price. So that is another option. If you don't want to spend the money on LMR 400, look for KMR 400. And there are lots and lots of other retailers, but you want to make sure that it's less loss cable that you're purchasing. T9B05. What happens as the frequency of a signal in coax cable is increased? The loss increases as well. All right. As you go up in frequency, you're going to have a lot more loss. And depending on how much of a run you have of the coax, the more loss is going to be. So it is best to keep everything as that runs in your cable as small as you possibly can. What is the electrical difference between RG58 and RG213 coaxial cable? RG213 has less loss at a given frequency. Okay. RG58 could somewhat be used on HF for shorter runs, preferably, like around 25, maybe 50 feet. But if you really are going beyond 50 feet, really should be looking into 213, or at least, no less than 213. But LMR 400 is really the best choice for anything over 50 feet. So T9B11, which of the following types of feed lines has the lowest loss in VHF and UHF? Air insulated hardline. T9B08, which of the following is a source of loss in coaxial feed line? And that's going to be all of the above. Water intrusion. You got to make sure that wherever you're connecting is sealed. Coax seal is a great product to have on hand everywhere. Okay. Coaxial high SWR standing wave ratio, multiple connectors in line. So that is why you want to measure your line, how much you're going to need, give yourself a little bit extra, then measure again, okay, just to make sure you didn't screw up on the measurement, and then cut it once. All right. And in the construction industry, that is the golden rule there. Measure twice and cut once, because you're not going to be able to add things on, and it's not good if you're using multiple connectors. Okay, you really don't want to do that. All right, T7C09. Which of the following causes failure of coaxial cable? Like I said, moisture is our enemy. And, just about every single antenna is going to be outside. And, it rains just about anywhere in the world that you are. It's going to rain. So, coaxial, very, very important. T7C10. Why should the outer jacket of a coaxial cable be resistant to ultraviolet light? Ultraviolet light can damage the jacket and allow water to enter the cable. Again, they're pounding in that moisture resistance. All right. Moisture is our enemy. What is a disadvantage of air core coaxial cable when compared to foam or solid dielectric types. It requires special techniques to prevent moisture in the cable. Yeah, again, moisture is not our friend at all. So which of the following is true for PL259 type coax connectors? They are commonly used as HF and VHF frequencies. Different types of connectors. We're getting into the connectors right now. All different types of connectors. Type N, which of the following RF connectors is the most suitable for frequencies above 400 megahertz? Type N. All right. One of the more expensive. Okay. But it is a moisture resistant connector. Very, very good connector. What causes erratic changes in SWR? Location in the antenna or the feed line? And moisture also. I've had that done to me, yeah, a couple times. Didn't see the end of the antenna properly. Rain, storm came through, and then the next thing I know, my SWR is through the roof.